Game changers of Indian cricket. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my first vlog on a series of presentations on game changers of Indian cricket. Whenever you think of Indian cricket, the first game changer which comes foremost to mind is the great Sunil Gavaskar. In the early years of Indian cricket, after India's independence, India did not have a batsman who could perform against genuine pace, swing, and seam bowling, particularly on away conditions. But all that changed in 1971. There emerged a rising star of Indian cricket who was to dominate the world for the next decade or two. He amassed 774 runs in his very first Test series in the West Indies against pace bowlers the like of which he had never faced before. He had a sound batting technique, a terrific temperament, and above all, as far as I am concerned, he was mentally the toughest batsman to have played Test cricket. This is borne out by his fourth innings average of 58.25 when the game is always on the line, and his average is only second to the legendary Donald Bradman, who was obviously from another planet. He was that pioneering game changer of Indian cricket who took on the opposition and was fearless. Although a defensive batsman by nature, he was that pivot that laid the foundation or the platform for India's wins and other close games, particularly playing abroad. Major instances in the defining fourth innings. He scored 67 not out in his very first Test match against the West Indies of Port of Spain to win the game for India. His 53 at Lord's in his very first Test match in England in 1971 was also a fearless innings on a substandard pitch under difficult conditions facing John Snow and John Price. He almost won the game for India, which was eventually drawn due to rain. Who can forget that 102 at Port of Spain when he laid the foundation for others to win that historic game for India? And 1979, he reached the peak of his career when he scored 221 at the Oval against England, facing a total of 438 when he single-handedly won the game for India, and barring some inexperienced batting by the later Indian batsman and Mike Braley, who claimed a bump catch of Vishwanath when he was batting very well and who was mentally equally tough to close the game for India. This game India should have won. It ended in a draw. Playing at home, who can forget the 90 at Chennai in 1986 in the tight Test match against Australia? And lastly, his 96 at Bangalore on a very difficult and substandard pitch, chasing 221 against Pakistan. He almost got India home with a scintillating knock of 96. And there are many other instances which defined Sunil Gavaskar, the game changer. He was not just a cricketing game changer, but a systemic one who motivated a new generation of confident Indians. Although he was not part of the Indian team which played Bill Lawry's Australian team in 1969, he was well aware of Lawry's egregious behavior and that of some of his teammates like Keith Stackpole and Ashley Mallett, with their demeaning attitude not just towards the Indian umpires but towards India and Indians in general. Bill Lawry even had the audacity of mentioning in his ghost-written book that the main reason for his team's thrashing by South Africa in South Africa was due to the fact that the Australian team received poor nutrition in India. Bill Lawry, you're a clown, and what a shame you made those comments. I'm sure this weighed heavily on Sunil's mind when he pushed Chetan Chauhan along with himself in that famous walkout at Melbourne where India got one of many bad decisions. At the end, it probably was not the decision which Gavaskar was upset, but he wanted to send the message to the Australians that we'll give it back to you as good as we get. This was the game-changing event, and coincidentally, Bill Lawry happened to be the commentator describing this event. He set the template for other younger players like Kapil Dev, Ravi Shastri, and Yashpal Sharma that this is a different India and will not take any crap from anyone, not just in Test cricket, but even as a nation. He was always focused on his own game and not on the reputation of opposition players, be it Sobers or Kenai, be it Jon Snow or Jeff Thompson. He was always comfortable with who he was, had tremendous self belief, and did not suffer from any complex. With all the accolades he richly deserves, there's also a downside to his personality. One can never forget his 36 not out in a World Cup game against England when he batted for 174 balls with a strike rate of 20.68 and batted for almost 3 hours, in complete oblivion of the fact that a one-day game cannot be drawn. He was criticized later by G.H. Ramchand, the team manager at the time, who unfortunately carried no weight and was a journeyman and basically only was involved in housekeeping duties. What was surprising at the time that Bishan Singh Bedi, who was normally outspoken, could not pass the message on his 3 hour dull marathon at the Lord's cricket ground. And there were batters like Engineer and Abid Ali who were waiting to bat. And unfortunately, when Sunil was batting, there was Anshuman Gaikwad and later Vishwanath who were not in a position to give any advice to Sunil Gavaskar. This is one of the darkest spot in his life, in his cricketing career, and Sunil has never owned up to that. And in his book Sunny Days, actually gave bad excuses that he was entitled to have a bad day at the job. Sunil, you can have a few minutes of mental freeze, or you can have a transient ischemic attack for 3 hours. But at the time, you put the spectators in a coma, which is very unfortunate. I recently heard Sunil Gavaskar defend himself when he dropped Kapil Dev and Sandeep Patil in that test match in Delhi in 1984 against England, playing rash shots when he passed the buck onto the selectors and did not take any blame on himself. At the time this happened, I supported his decision of sacking Sandeep Patil, who was primarily picked up as a batsman. But Kapil Dev was a different ball game. At that time, Kapil Dev had established himself as one of the best counter-attacking batsmen in the game, and that's the only way he played the game. So dropping him made no sense at all. And Sunil, you did not own up to that, and I still can't believe that you're passing the buck onto the selectors who are not here to defend themselves. And lastly, Sunil Gavaskar, the commentator. He's not endearing as a Nasser Hussain or a Harsha Bhogle, but he's very unique. He's a spicy character, can be sarcastic, and can be a wise guy at times, but always with a sense of humor, and someone whose knowledge of the game, technical aspects of the game, is second to none. He, along with the great Lata Mangeshkar and Amitabh Bachchan, were the three iconic figures who inspired a whole generation of Indians at the time. So Sunil Gavaskar, hats off to you. You're a legend. All said and done, Sunil, you're a champion of champions, a great Baratha and a proud Indian, and a frontline warrior who the opposition teams had to get through first to make inroads into the rest of the team. Cricket is a game of positions, and if I were to pick an all-time great Test cricket team, you will be my first choice as an opening batsman. You do not always have to be an aggressive stroke maker to win games, but Sunil Gavaskar showed that he was the epitome of a defensive match winner. This is Dr. Raj Desai signing off. Your comments will be appreciated. Thank you.